It's turning into a two-horse race at the head of the championship as we head into race 2 in the 5th round of the International GT Open in 2025. 60 minutes of racing to come at the circuit Paul Ricard in Le Castellet. The temperatures are rising on the track. It's going to be a sweltering day for the drivers at the wheel of these GT3 cars, which are making their way around to the pre-grid. 60 minutes of racing to come after yesterday's third win of the season for Levente Reves. He moves into the head of the championship, but a difficult qualifying for the Hungarian means he starts down in 17th place, caught out by a red flag that was brought out for Emir Naran's expired Vimana by GetSpeed Mercedes, which will not be taking the start, unfortunately. So we're down to 26 runners for this second race of the weekend. Conversely, the pre-event championship leaders, Christopher Haase and Simon Riker, who had an absolutely awful day yesterday. First of all, with contact for Simon Riker being punted round on the opening lap by Steve Jantz's Mercedes, and then later on contact for Christopher Haase, where he was pitched into the barriers on the start and finish straight and wrecking their day and ending any chance of scoring a solitary point. It's their first non-points score of the season, but they have a little bit of a reprieve. Christopher Haase starting third for this one. Those are the two championship contenders to be thinking about, but there are plenty more stories to tell over the course of this race. It's Chris Stevens and George Morgan back in the commentary box for this one. George, I'm hugely looking forward to this one.
This is going to be an absolute clinic, folks at home. Thank you all for joining us wherever you are around the globe. And yes, Ferrari are back on top, starting on pole position with Tommaso Mosca. The headlines will read, though, yesterday that Levente Reves has retaken the championship lead after a truly remarkable performance by both he and Maxi Goertz, and we got to watch an exhibition of truly phenomenal GT3 driving between the likes of Fabian Schiller and Goertz himself. Of course, two phenomenal Mercedes factory talents back here at Paul Ricard, and they'll be undertaking the second stint when the driver change window opens up halfway through this 60-minute encounter. We've got to talk about Rolf Aaron as well, right at the very death of qualifying when the red flag came out with just over a minute to go, managed to plummet in with one final last gasp attempt to stick his car on the front row for GetSpeed to at least put yet another of their Mercedes up into the firing line of Askin. Of course, Marcelo Ramirez will be taking over from that. Axel Jeffries on his return to the International GT Open, managing to push himself onto the second row of the grid. And that, of course, he is representing the Into Africa by Dragon Racing International alongside Khalil Letlarka, who will be representing South Africa as well, and founder of the Into Africa Racing by Dragon and the South African Endurance Series as well, promoting inclusivity and diversity in world motorsport from the South African region. And we're looking forward to seeing how they get on this time. Watch out also for Dean McDonald and also the Elite Motorsport Ferrari. Tom Emson may have qualified 8th fastest, but one thing we do know about the Ferraris, they go very nicely quick in a straight line, and with Tom Leben coming in, who's been extremely impressive and will be taking the second half of the stint when the checkered flag comes out, they could be a major threat. And Dean McDonald, watch him in the early stages. It could be a huge opportunity for Greystone to get back on track.
There's a lot to take into account for this one. We've got pro runners through the top 8. The leading AM cars, Christian Korzanowski and Michele Rugolo, starting inside the top 10 as well. And remember, Michele Rugolo, one of those drivers taking advantage of the new silver class rule for the AM Championship, where if you're a silver class driver over the age of 40, you do have the opportunity to compete in the AM Championship. But beaten to pole position by Christian Korzanowski in the Olymp Audi. But qualifying this morning was all about this man, Tommaso Mosca, his first pole position in the International GT Open, his first year with us, having come over from Italian GT, and a big weekend for AF Corsa after Amato Ferrari's visit into the garage yesterday. Rolf Aaron getting that last gasp effort in right before the red flag to put his Mercedes on the front row of the grid. His teammate Marcelo Ramirez in his first season of GT competition, getting more and more comfortable out there. The usual nonchalance of Christopher Haase inside that car, where he almost looks like he's napping during the pre-grid activities. This is the Pro-Am pole sitter, Axel Jeffries, and that Dragon Racing run car making its debut here this weekend. And the Pro-Am fight once again providing all of the thrills. Yannick Mettler also starting inside the top 10 in the second place car in Pro-Am from the Car Barn Raceworks by SBS Automotive Performance Team. Further down, outside the top 10, you've got Alex Fontana and Aaron Walker as well to contend with that one. Here is that Mercedes. Missed out on the podium yesterday and ended a rather impressive run of podium finishes. Water already in hand for Yannick as he tries to take on as many fluids as possible. The fans in the stands hopefully staying shaded and hydrated, as are all of the corner workers, the marshals and the pit lane officials as well, hopefully. Bit of a difficult qualifying for Mikey Porter. I'm sure he was hoping for a little bit more. I think there was more pace in that car, but had a lot of his lap times deleted from qualifying, and so I think only got the one effort in right at the end. And then Tom Empson there we saw for Elite. Eddie Ives' birthday the other day, the team boss, and I'm sure he'll want to celebrate with a podium this weekend.
I'm sure he will, and he'll have a great chance, I think, this time around. Obviously, Christian Kozanowski starting in behind, leading the AM charge ahead of Michele Rugolo, who's back again, one of the legends of this series as well, been here on many an occasion. Of course, we tend to equate him just due to the number of race wins that he sustained, actually the third highest in terms of race wins in this series, behind the likes of Miguel Ramos and Andrea Montemini. Of course, we've got Alex Fontana lining up on the grid too, looking to get set ready for yet another fantastic race. Also further back, the combination of Steve Jans and Aaron Walker. Walker, of course, doing the opening stint this time. Of course, Steve Jans was right in the heat of battle as well yesterday after a collision with Simon Riker to open up yesterday's account over the 70 minutes of action. Walker had his own little brush as well. This time, only his was with Timo Rumpf.
Yes, and that difficult day for them, and combined with a victory in Pro-Am for the number 20 SBS Automotive Performance Mercedes of Valentin Pierberg and Dominic Baumann, means that that number 6 crew lost the championship lead yesterday. So it's been changing around in all three categories as we're now into the second half of the season and about to head into the summer break. It's quite a few weeks until we head to the Red Bull Ring on the 6th of September, where we will be making our final visit for the time being to the Austrian mountains, the Styrian Mountains, as we will be heading to a new venue next year, Misano, on the 6th and 7th of June. If you haven't checked out the 2026 calendar for GT Open, go ahead and mark those dates in your calendar. We'll be heading back to Portimao, Budapest, here in Paul Ricard, Hockenheim taking a slightly later spot as well, rounding out the season in Barcelona. And of course, we will still have the return of the Spa and Monza 500-kilometer races at either end of the season. This is the car that won in Pro-Am yesterday, and our new championship leaders in that category. Fabio Barbini here, hoping to do a little bit more work. 9th in qualifying amongst the Pro-Am runners. He said he had some difficulties in qualifying, and the red flag came out before he could do anything really about it. Timo Rumpf taking over from Heiko Neumann this weekend, who is Lucas Dunner's regular teammate this season, but Heiko unable to race this weekend, and so it is the Motorpark team boss who has taken over the driving duties once again in that car.
Certainly has, and we now move back to Olymp Racing Audi, the 777, which is being driven by Marcin Jedlinski, getting some final words of wisdom from teammate and colleague Carol Bash. Remember, they started on the front two rows of the grid and initially found themselves in second. Had to give the place back, though, to Maxi Goertz after just exploring a little bit too much of the track limits through the course of the opening stint of the race. Just leading back, obviously, with Valentin Pierberg being in the firing line.
Let's remind you what happened yesterday. It was Fabian Schiller and Maxi Goertz going toe-to-toe into the first corner. The two Mercedes factory drivers into the first corner. But dramas for the championship leader, Simon Riker, being pitched round by Steve Jans, who would pick up a 10-second time penalty for that incident. Carol Bash took second place on the opening lap, but was forced to yield that spot because he took it off the track. Fabian Schiller handed over to Anthony Bartone, who would emerge into the lead of the race. The American would have to come under pressure, but it was game on for the final spot on the podium. Tommaso Mosca making his way through into third place. And then this dramatic moment for Christopher Haase, pitched into the barriers, and thankfully no further damage, only to the rear of that Audi. Bartone and Levente Reves would duke it out for the lead. Reves waiting for the opportune moment to strike. He found it into Virage Dupont, making the move on Bartone to take the lead of the race with only a few minutes remaining in the race. And that would make it a third victory of the season for our new championship leader, Levente Reves, his second alongside Maxi Gertz, and a fabulous day for Team Motorpark. This is what it's done to the championship standings. Then Levente Reves now leads by 11 points after Simon Riker and Christopher Haase, for the first time this season, failed to score points. Tom Leben and Tom Ensign closing down a little bit, 27 points back in the championship. Zach Meakin and Mikey Porter still in contention there, 34 points back. We're about to get underway for 60 minutes of racing in Le Castellet. Here is how they line up on the grid. It's a first pole position in GT Open for Tommaso Mosca in the AF Corsa Ferrari. Ralph Aron, the Mercedes factory driver, starts alongside him for Get Speed. Christopher Haase in the East Talent Audi, hoping to take the championship lead back, starts alongside the Pro-Am pole sitter Axel Jeffries in the Dragon Racing Run Ferrari. Then it's Dean McDonald in the Greystone GT McLaren alongside Yannick Mettler, also in Pro-Am for the Carbahn Raceworks team. Fourth row of the grid is Mikey Porter in the Optimum McLaren, and then Tom Emson in the Elite Ferrari, our two Young Gun GT4 grads starting alongside each other. Completing the top 10 is the AM leaders, Christian Korzanowski in the Olymp Ferrari, Michele Rugolo in an AF Corsa Run Ferrari. Then it's Alex Fontana and Aaron Walker continuing the Pro-Am fight for Car Collection and Get Speed respectively. Artem Petrov in the Oregon Lamborghini number 63 starts 13th alongside Philippe Salicada in the ISR Audi. 15th is Marcus Pavrud, home race for the Santa-Lot crew, and then Amory Bondwell in the newly classed BDR Grupo Prom machine. Levente Reves, championship leader, yesterday's race winner, going from 17th on the grid ahead of Robin Rogalski in the second Oregon Lamborghini. 19th on the grid is Anthony Bartone, and then Valentin Pierberg, the car that won in Pro-Am yesterday. 21st on the grid is Fabio Babini, hoping to climb up the Pro-Am order, and then Timo Rovkal, the Motorpark team boss, going from 22nd on the grid and 10th in his class. Marcin Jedlinski fighting for the win yesterday, but contact prevented the Olymp team from providing that one. Arden Goodmanson starts alongside him in the Team Tour Porsche. Then it's Alexander West in the Garage 59 at McLaren. Alfredo Hernandez in the second of the BDR Grupo Prom. Mercedes completes the order. No Emir Naran after his car expired in qualifying. They were unable to get that car ready in time for the race.
Yeah, tricky one for them. Just going to go back to my point I was going to make just prior to when we look back at the highlights. Valentin Pierberg now, with him now very much in line for an attack on the Pro-Am title. That incidentally could yet become his second Pro-Am title that he's managed to obtain. The last time he managed to clinch that was back in 2018 with Tom Onslow Cole for the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes AMG team, which is, of course, the same team he lines up with today alongside Dominic Baumann. They'll have a great chance once again, I'm sure, to try and muscle in some more points. Obviously, it's going to be richly competitive in the Pro-Am class. Of course, Philippe Salicada, as well as Libor Malotta at ISR Audi, have also had some brilliant successes of late. Don't write off Santalok at all with the force of Marcus Pavrud. And who knows? I mean, elsewhere, Alex Fontana, Hash, as of recent, certainly this season, has ascended to another level off the back of what we saw last season. So he's learning all the time. Keep your eyes on him. But as we pan our eyes to the front, you can see there Mosca up at the top. They've got a great opportunity here today to come away with a fantastic victory. But still, further back, Haase, 10 seconds of handicap to serve during the driver change window. Riker was in great form yesterday after the spin, making his way through the field relatively quickly. He'll need to be on his best form yet again today. And keep your eyes peeled on the Greystone GT McLaren of Dean McDonald and later James Kell. And also, not forgetting the Optimum Motorsport Mikey Porter as well. He'll be passing over, of course, to Zach Meakin and Tom Emson and Tom Leben. Emson doing the initial stint from P8, and then, of course, it's Leben to the end. And Leben is furiously quick behind the wheel of that 296.
It's three different manufacturers inside the top three. The Ferrari leading the Mercedes, leading the Audi. McLaren also represented inside the top 5 as well, with D. McDonald, factory driver in that Greystone GT car. Greystone, in fact, are on double duty this weekend. It's Ollie Webb on pole position in GT Cup Europe. That's going to come straight after this race, the younger sibling series to the International GT Open. But now we keep our eye on the formation of the starting grid, the 2x2 formation as they slowly weave their way around these final 2 corners. Looking inside the Get Speed garage there, team boss Adamo Siko just saw there on the left-hand side. He's got his car starting on the front row of the grid, and plenty of cars contesting in the Pro-Am category as well. So, the red Ferrari of Tommaso Mosca on driver's left, the green Mercedes of Ralph Aron on the front row of the grid. The cars make their way out of Virage Dupont. We look to the lights to get this race underway. We are racing for the second time this weekend, and it's Christian Kozlowski all over the left-hand side of the racetrack, trying to find some space there. Absolutely level pegging between the top 2 as we head towards turn 1 for the first time of asking the cars. Fanning out there, Ralph Aron trying to go around the outside, has to bail off into the escape road, as does Mikey Porter and Dean McDonald as well. A few having to take some escape road on the exit of the corner as well, but thankfully everybody seems to have made it cleanly through. And so Ralph Aron has emerged ahead of Tommaso Mosca, but he will have to yield that as Axel Jeffries has gone round Christopher Haas to take 3rd position overall, the Pro-Am leader. Now this is where it all got a little bit messy yesterday, and there are some cars making contact, and I fear that might have been the championship leader Levente Reves, who might have been in just a little bit of strife there. We'll get confirmation of that later as they head out onto the Mistral for the first time, of asking Bartone running wide as they head out of turn 7 as well. And this is Ralph Aron giving up that lead to Tommaso Mosca. He doesn't want to face a penalty. He took the lead by cutting turn 2.
Yeah, obviously understandable. Had to give the place back to Tommaso Mosca, who now retakes the lead of the race after starting on pole position. We did see Robin Rogalski running wide through turn 1 as well. We've got more side-by-sides through the second half of the Mistral straight. We've got obviously Alex Fontana, who was also trying to follow the same line that Christian Kozlowski tried to take down through turn 1. It's the non-optimal line, very tight, very much a pinch point. Philip Salakada up to P14. Petrov's moved ahead of Rugolo, which leaves Christian Kozlowski on his own up into P8. So now it's wheel to wheel between Tom Empson and the 26 of Marcus Pavarud up the inside now, coming through Bousset this time. Obviously Empson now losing out potentially here to P9 as they go nose to tail, and now coming down through towards the next left. You can see also Fontana coming under strife as well as they come in towards the final corners. The 28 of Amari Bondwell all over the tail of him now as they creep and peek through the final sector. Next up, the second lap. 58 minutes to go. Race is underway.
Well, I wondered if he was trying to yield the spot there, because Empson was one of those cars that went off the track at the start of the race. We just saw Mikey Porter yielding a spot to Christopher Haase into Scene Corner as well, because he definitely made that move for 4th position by going off the road. And so there's going to be an awful lot for race control to look at down there. And so this is on board with Axel Jeffries looking at the back of Ralph Aron, who's looking at the back of Tommaso Mosca. And it is as we were in terms of the top 2, but Haase losing a spot to Axel Jeffries off the line. And it is the rightful order resumed with Mikey Porter yielding that spot. Then it is Yannick Mettler, Dean McDonald down into 7th position. Then the AM leader Christian Kozlowski. Michele Rugolo really got roughed up on that opening lap because he started alongside Kozlowski, but he's down in 18th position overall now. And then it's Marcus Pavarud and Tom Empson inside the top 10 as Alex Fontana and Aaron Walker go wheel to wheel here into turn 6 and 7 onto the Mistral. Walker has spent quite a bit of time in the runoff areas on the exits of quite a few corners so far in this race. We're on board with Amory Bondwell in the BDR Gruppo Prom machine. So it's 3 pro drivers, line astern in that order, and a lunge on the inside from Philippe Salakada into the chicane as well, forces Bondwell to slightly straight line the final element and into the back of Fontana's Porsche heading up towards Scene Corner.
Yeah, it got very tight on the exit coming out of the Mistral chicane, and it got far too tight as far as PDR and car collection are concerned. Luckily enough for both parties, they're all okay. Alex Fontana still ahead as they come down in towards Bousset. Aaron Walker at the head of this trio that have been squabbling over the higher end bottom 10 places. Obviously at the moment they're all fighting to get within the top 10. Further up it's Tom Empson, who's at the trail end of this top 10 fights. Obviously he's trying to chase after Marcus Pavarud in their continued fight that they've been under since the very start of this race. 55 minutes to go. Mosca's still out in front. Has actually broken a second now on Ralph Aaron at the top of the tree. Axel Jeffries also going to get closer. Just look at this from Amari Bondwell. He has not left the rear of Alex Fontana at all through the start of this race. Obviously, ever since they had the contact as well. Luckily enough, no harm, no foul for either driver as they now power out to the final corner at DuPont. They now come down through towards turn one yet again. Aaron now with a full face of Axel Jeffries for the back half. So now we've got the Tom Emson and also Marcus Pavrud very nearly side by side coming through turn one, but the Santaloc holding on for now.
Trouble for the AM leader though. George Christian Korzanowski's front hood there was flapping around like crazy. I wonder if that's going to attract the attention of race control and potentially bring out the black and orange flag. You can't really see it this way. You can see it flapping away a little bit, but when it gets onto the Mistral, you'll see it going away like crazy. It was flapping harder than a bird's wings down the start and finish straight. And so this could be potential dramas for the Olin Ferrari that currently leads in the AM category. And meanwhile, Marcus Pavrud leads Tom Emson onto the Mistral in 9th and 10th position overall. This is Axel Jeffries looking to make a move on Ralph Aaron going into the chicane. Tommaso Mosca with a nice 1.5 second advantage. And then Aaron, Jeffries and Haase separated by not very much at all. East Talent have at the very least worked off 10 seconds of handicap after yesterday's race. AF Corset in the leading car, they picked up 5 after finishing second yesterday. We'll keep you abreast of all of the handicaps and how that will affect things when the driver change window opens in about 18 minutes time. Team Tour here, Arno Gudmundsson in the slipstream of Marcin Jedlinski in 24th and 25th overall, heading towards Scene Corner. That's a battle between an AM car and a Pro-Am car, but you'll see what Gudmundsson is really aiming for. It's the McLaren just in front of him of Alexander West, one that has been a big contender in the AM Championship. But it is currently the AF Corsa crew that lead that, especially after their win yesterday.
Of course, it's Mark Sampson who will be mainly in that championship fight. Obviously, there's been 2 different drivers taking over the wheel of that Garage 59 McLaren that West is currently driving. Of course, prior to that, it was, of course, Miguel Ramos, the former 2-time International GT Open champion from 2015 and 2020, tied up on titles. Andrea Montemini, we do wish Miguel Ramos very well, but Sampson is the one on the quest for that AM title. Reves has moved ahead of Michele Rugolo now, confirmed on your timing screen, folks. 18th place now for the Hungarian as he looks to once again continue after his rampant run yesterday, managing to finally get past Bartone in the dying stages of race 1 yesterday as we now watch them come through the first sector once more. As you can see, Christian Korzanowski somewhat recovering now, half a second away. Once more, you've got Tom Emson and Pavrud mixing things up, but they've dragged in now Aaron Walker also into this fight. Now for Walker, this is imperative because he is more concerned about Marcus Pavrud for a Pro-Am P3 place.
I think Reves has lost places somewhere in the last couple of laps because, it wasn't down in 18th earlier on, was it? And already 14 seconds off the race lead with 10 seconds of handicap to serve as well. This is a replay of the start. There was a bit of shuffling going on when the lights went out. That was Ralph Aaron getting very punchy around the outside of the first corner and having to take to the escape road. Quite a few ended up doing the same thing, and not all of them really taking the prescribed route necessarily through there. This is how the number 19 Oregon Lamborghini saw it, of Robin Rogalski, heading down into the first corner. Just cars everywhere. Now, is he one of the ones who went over the chicane? Yes, he was, and did go through the correct route down there. Can't say the same for everyone, I'm afraid. This is Amory Bondwell's point of view, so you can see the Santaloc Audi getting very punchy there on the left-hand side. The Mercedes of Aaron Walker going right off the racetrack, basically on the driver's right. And Bondwell also went over the chicane.
Despite obviously what we believe to be Robin Rogalski taking the right avenue, the team managers for his car have been asked to report to race control regardless anyway, as we don't take a look at another shot here. Now this might be something to do with it, who knows. The number 19 of Robin Rogalski meeting the 65 of Timo Rumpf-Kyle coming through the first sector with then in behind. You can just see there's some observations being taken from Adam Osaka as well from Get Speed Performance Mercedes. As now we watch as the cars now come through over the crest in the first sector. We'll keep you updated as to what happens with car 19 with regards to the investigation that race control are currently underway with over the race starters now. With 51 minutes to go, we continue our soiree through the first sector and watching Rolf Aaron, who still sits in second, but now 3.4 seconds undisjointed off the back of Tommaso Mosca, really putting that Ferrari to work at the head of the field, and they're really growing the gap. Last lap was the fastest one as well, the only car to be in the 203s, so really working with the clean air right now.
4 different manufacturers vying over second place at the moment. The 6.2 litre V8 powered Mercedes, the twin turbo V6 Ferrari, they're having a look on the inside. Then you've got the 5.2 litre V10 mid-engined Audi, and then the twin-turbo V8 McLaren there as well. Everything you love about GT3 racing right there in a nutshell. And you've got a current Mercedes factory driver in there, a former Audi Works driver, potentially a future McLaren factory driver in there as well. That was a huge moment for Ralph Aaron. He's got a problem. Puncture on the rear left corner, through Stint corner. How on earth did he hang on to that? That could have been an airplane crash. So dramas for our second place car.
That is really, really unfortunate for Ralph Aaron. We just saw there a big blow at the car. The rear was certainly all shapes coming through out of Stint corner at turn 10. One of the fastest corners you'll see on this racetrack, if not the fastest. And Ralph Aaron now forfeiting place after place. This is what happened. He got onto the curb, whipping the tail out. I wonder whether he caught something awkwardly on the curb that led to the puncture. Let's have a look at it from the Into Africa. I think it was.
I don't know if that's just pulled it off the rim, but that's extraordinary if he's managed to do that. Well, either way, well held, Ralph.
Well, that's the second big save that we've had this weekend. Obviously, Haase was yesterday. This time it's a Mercedes with Ralph Aaron at the wheel. It could just be the immense force, the lateral, should we say, grip coming out of turn 10 at sea. Like I said, it's the fastest corner on this racetrack. You go in there so quickly, and then at the same time, so much weight is transferred then on that left-hand side of the car. So it could well have ripped away the rubber straight from, like obviously the Michelin tyre, the rubber itself, away from the alloy of the car.
Beautiful lunge on the inside of the first corner from Alex Fontana to take 4th position in Pro-Am from Aaron Walker. And we're going to see it again. Look at this. This is a lunge with a capital L right here on the inside. And that is 10th place overall now for Fontana. 4th in the Pro-Am category. Now looking at the back of Tom Empson. So the result of all that with Ralph Aaron into pit lane, and then we can see that has promoted Axel Jeffries up to 2nd place, the Pro-Am leader. Then Christopher Haase into 3rd, Mikey Porter now 4th, Yannick Mettler 5th, then Dean McDonald, Christian Korzanowski, Marcus Pavarud. Then is the car leading that next train of cars with Tom Empson all over the right-hand side of the circuit, trying to get that move done and defend from Alex Fontana at the same time. Now, Empson here is a little bit of an outlier in terms of the battle because all the other ones are Pro-Am cars. So they're all fighting each other for class position as well as overall position, whereas Empson really wants to be a little bit further up the road. But of course, all of these guys have got their quick driver in for the start of this race.
Yeah, absolutely right. We'll have to see how it unfolds when the driver change window opens up. That is always the case in point. And then we see how we run then towards the bitter end, and Ralph Aaron out of the car, unfortunately. And I would say that's day done, Chris Stevens.
Certainly looks that way, doesn't it? What a shame for them, especially with Marcelo Ramirez feeling on quite good form, it seemed, this weekend, and hoping to gain more experience in his first year of GT racing. So, Christopher Haase here in 3rd position, trying to get back into the championship hunt after their first non-score yesterday. Fastest lap of the race being done by Tommaso Mosca. His lead gap now 6 seconds, and crucially that has negated the 5 seconds of handicap that they will take in the pit stop phase when he hands over the car to Carl Bennett for the second part of this race. Haase really fancies a run at 2nd place here.
I mean, Tommaso Mosca is in a different stratosphere where it comes to lap time at the moment. He's gone purple again in the first sector. He's the only driver in the 202s. They're not even in the 203s, everyone else behind. Obviously, Axel Jeffries now in clean air, obviously without Ralph Aaron in front now, so maybe that will make a difference for the Into Africa by Dragon Racing. So maybe they can now look to use Axel's ability to try and pull them back through, as we see Alex Fontana now ahead of Tom Emson trying to tackle Marcus Pavarud. Aaron Walker up the inside now of Emson, very close as well to contact, as now it looks like Amari Bondwell is also taking evasive action in the 28 Mercedes-AMG GT3. So it looks like it's going to be side by side with Bondwell and Walker.
But he can't, he's got to yield that. He
Surely,
completely
he
cut
was
the
off the track,
chicane.
yeah.
No one's told him that. Yeah, okay, now he settles back in. But so that's Fontana now ahead of Emson into 9th position overall, and getting rid of one of those pro cars, and then getting himself onto the back of the Pro-Am podium. Marcus Pavarud. Walker struggling to get that Mercedes into the second apex of Le Bousset, and under big pressure from Bondwell as well. In fact, those positions have just swapped as well, with Walker now ahead of Bondwell, and the Belgian driver trying to take it back again.
Absolutely. Coming through the final corners now to begin the next lap very soon, with 45 minutes and just under 20 to go. They come through out of Pont. Once again, Emson trying to unhook a potential move here this time around on Alex Fontana further up. We're currently looking just a little bit further back, as Aaron Walker is taking the train of Amari Bondwell, and Philip Salakada on for another ride. As now down the inside comes Alex Fontana. A late move against Marcus Pavarud, and he did something similar before earlier in the race. Pavarud, his door was unlocked, and Fontana just dilly-dallied his way around the outside, and through he went through turn 1, and now has masterminded his way past Pavarud for P8 inside the top 10. Next up will be the pro car of Tom Emson. He'll be looking to try and get past Pavarud himself as well, to try and make a move past this Antelope car, as now we get confirmation on your timing screen. That was a truly succulent moment there from Alex Fontana. Let's see that again.
Alex Fontana's got the biggest left foot in the entire grid right now, isn't he?
Oh, look at that. Just look at the nose just dip down on the front of the Porsche coming through the first bend. Absolutely mesmeric scenes.
Oh, fantastic stuff. 2 great moves from Alex Fontana so far in this race. Going into the first corner, puts him up into 3rd in the Pro-Am category. And, oh, that is Philippe Salakada having to straight line the chicane just ever so slightly over the curbing, trying to avoid contact there with Amari Bondwell. Battle resumed for 2nd place, and Mikey Porter is well in this fight as well. So we may have lost the Mercedes, but it's still 3 different types of car there. Ferrari, Audi and McLaren fighting over 2nd place in this race. Remember, the Ferrari at the head of this trio of cars is a Pro-Am car. So when he hands over to his bronze driver, Exo Letlaka, in the second part of the race, expect him to fall down the order a little bit. They have worked off their newbie handicap, and so they will just have the standard minimum pit stop time when they do the driver change window, whereas the cars behind them should have a little bit to take as well. Although the 2nd place car in Pro-Am, Yannick Metler, also unhandicapped in this one. So it is just over a second then that separates those 3 cars as they start lap number 9 in this race.
Yep. Down the long straight they go again. Obviously, it's going to be a very feisty affair in Pro-Am, obviously, with the way it's stacked up right now. Obviously, Jeffries, whilst he's still overall P2, Metler could yet become a force later. Reves has just moved into P16 ahead of Fabio Babini as well. That's a pro car overtaking a Pro-Am entry. Of course, Babini the pro in that Pro-Am combination, which, of course, will be next undertaking with Johannes Zelger behind the wheel of the car when the driver change window opens up in 6 minutes and 40 or so's time. Pavarud once again on the defensive, because now he's got the face force of yet another car, only this time it's a Ferrari, not a Porsche. So they come through out of turn 6 and through towards turn 7 down the Mistral once again. And this is where Emson can make use of the straight line speed on that 296. Obviously here and now here in Paul Ricard in France, the halfway point decorated by a chicane, which we're now seeing being undertaken by Axel Jeffries and Christopher Haase, who's now only 3/10 now off the back of Jeffries right now. There is Pavarud. Here comes Emson. Just not quite close enough to make that move happen, but he's right in the window. It only takes 1 mistake.
And it could be easy to make those mistakes in the heat. We've seen so far these drivers really being put to the test with the heat inside the cockpits here this weekend. Tom Emson on the inside there of Marcus Pavarud. Battle for 9th position overall between a Pro-Am car and a Pro entry. Heading through Le Bousset. We've still got 5 more minutes until that driver change window opens. Just keeping an eye on Levente Reves. He may well be up to 16th now, but he's 24 seconds away from the race lead, and with 10 seconds to take in the in the pit stop as well. Maxi Gertz is going to have his hands full just to keep that car into the points, and that is dramas for our new Pro-Am Championship leader as of yesterday. And he very nearly spun again. No, he did spin again, trying to get it in the right direction. Valentin. So that's dropped him down to 25th overall, 11th of the Pro-Am runners, and that is a bit of a disaster for them. And so great news for the Get Speed entry, because they'll be able to close up on the points once again. It's been very tight between those two entries. The majority of the wins this year shared between the pair of them. 3 for Aaron Walker and Steve Jans, 2 for Valentin Pierberg and Dominic Baumann. But Pierberg has just given Baumann a little bit more work to do in the second part of this race.
And it throws a lifeline over to Fontana and Hash as well for Hash's second stick, because they've got no handicap. Into the pits comes Robin Rogalski, so the 19 Oregon, that's before the driver change window, so a problem it looks like for the Lamborghini.
Yep. That is before you're allowed to do the stop, and so problems for the Oregon car by the looks of it. It's Tom Empson heading into the chicane, still behind Marcus Pavarud, Aaron Walker, Amory Bondwell and Philippe Salacada, still all in very close proximity. Car behind them is Anthony Bartone, who finished second yesterday in a sterling defensive effort against Levente Reves. Kept the Hungarian at bay for as long as he possibly could, but still one of the best drives we've seen from Bartone in this championship. Bondwell getting a big moment of oversteer and a dab of opposite lock in the middle of scene corner. Extraordinary stuff. Love watching these onboards as always, especially when they're in the thick of the battle. As Pavarud here, the Norwegian driver, 24-year-old, or actually 25 now, turned 25 last month in the Santalok Audi home race for them. And as we always say, it's great to see the Audi still being competitive in these championships with the loss or the decreasing amount of factory support from the German marque. And I must say, Axel Jeffries is doing a sterling job holding on to second place at the moment. The Zimbabwean driver holding off Christopher Haase and Mikey Porter, but these guys now nearly 9 seconds behind race leader Tommaso Mosca. There you go, he's making his way onto the Mistral while these guys are going through the hotel chicane. Great illustration there of the gap that Mosca has pulled.
And still lapping in the 203s as well at the very least, which may not be the 202s that he had before, but it's still very quick and actually being matched at the moment by Alex Fontana, who's finally found an opportunity with clear air to try and close the gaps that are in front. So that's going to play or really pay dividends for Hash later on when he takes the wheel in the Pro-Am class, and we'll look forward to seeing how that's going to tie up with the likes of Yannick Mettler and Dexter Muller, who we hope has recovered after feeling a little bit under the weather yesterday, as we now make our way down the Mistral once again. Still Christian Korzanowski, top of the AM class as well, down in 7th place as we run on board as well with the 28 belonging to Amari Bondwell for the BDR Grupo Pro Mercedes team, heading down in towards Scene. You can see Haase now 3/10 lodged in behind Axel Jeffries. He's actually testing Jeffries a little bit coming through the first sector. These two, I'm sure, will know each other very well indeed. Of course, both experienced and highly rated talents across the globe where it comes to GT3 racing. Of course, Axel Jeffries all the way from the African continent and has been in the International GT Open in prior seasons. We, of course, saw him for a full campaign back in 2022. Rogalski still stuck in the pits at the moment, so concerns probably, no doubt, being raised further right now.
I think he's gone back in, George, actually.
Well, if
yeah,
that's
he's
the
come
case,
in twice.
Race pretty much one and done, really,
well,
right now.
Whatever they thought had been fixed.
There it is.
Then, yeah, so it's a change of tyre. Well, presumably they changed tyres when they came in on the first stop, if it's some sort of puncture.
The problem they've got now, though, we've got a minute until the driver change window. Surely they want to get Leonardo Polcini into the car. No question, they're going to have to... Well, yeah, they're a lap down, but this is what I'm saying, though, because now they're going to have to undertake surely another pit stop. Surely they've got to leave and then come back in again, or...
Yeah.
You know, that's...
At this point, would you just put Polcini in the car and take the penalty for not doing it in the in the window?
Why go around again and take another stop?
Yeah, well, either way, points for the number 19 car seems like a very far-fetched idea now. Right, Haas is really hounding the back of this Ferrari now of Axel Jeffries, probably the closest he's been coming through the final element of the Hotel Chicane and then onto the Mistral. But see Axel Jeffries able to get really great drive out of turn 7 and onto the straight. And you see how much the gap has grown by the time they start braking for the chicane here. And Mikey Porter in a bit of no man's land as well there, the back of this queue. Remember, Mikey Porter, reigning British GT4 champion. That's Rogowski going into the garage. Definitely game over there for one of the Oregon cars.
That's now 2 retirements. See the first one being Ralph Aaron for Get Speed Mercedes, already having to end their day after a very promising start after qualifying this morning, getting into second just before the red flag came out. But this time they were on the wrong end of an incident in their own right, coming through Scene Corner, where either there was a puncture or the Pirelli, or should I say the Michelin tyre, separated from the actual wheel itself. As we now watch as the drivers currently sat Ps 2, 3 and 4 continue their scrap here, coming through the final 2 corners on this Paul Ricard racetrack. Haas once again 4 tenths away from the back of Axel Jeffries. The gap has developed furthermore between Ps 1 and 2 now to nearly 10 seconds in itself. It may have gone surpassed 10 seconds now as Walker now comes side by side. Tom Empson coming into the pits, driver change window on. So Tom Empson, one of the first to come in, and it will be Leben stepping in that elite motorsport Ferrari.
Tom Leben, who was the man who took pole position for Elite in Budapest and did a lot of the heavy lifting the first part of that race. Anthony Bartone also coming into pit lane to hand over to Fabi Schiller. Levente Reves also in to hand over to Maxi Goertz. So watch this start to unfurl now as Schiller and Goertz try and get their cars further up the order. Of course, coming in at the earliest opportunity to hand over to the quicker driver, whereas those at the head of the field will most likely stay out for as long as possible, particularly the Pro-Am cars that have their Pro in currently. So that is Axel Jeffries, Yannick Mettler, Alex Fontana, Marcus Pavrud, Aaron Walker, Amory Bondwell, Philippe Salicada and Fabio Babini.
Yeah, more and more cars coming through now. We've got the 777 Audi of Karel Bash. Obviously, with Marcin Jedlinski, they, of course, they're making their change now in the Audi R8 LMS. Of course, Fabian Schiller stepping in as well. We got Dominic Baumann, who, of course, will step in for Valentin Pierberg, who had the spin earlier on, which cost him such a large amount of time and has really disconnected him from any chance of a Pro-Am victory this time around here in Race 2. But anything can happen. Baumann, a phenomenal driver. Obviously, anything that can occur outside of their own race. Obviously, safety cars do happen. We've seen it already. But as we now watch as the front runners now make their way through the final sector once more. Axel Jeffries, you can fathom, doing the main part of the stint. Same for Arce, same for Mikey Porter as well. 2.4 then to Yannick Mettler, who will, of course, go the distance. You'd fathom as well. And also Dean McDonald and Christian Korzanowski, of course. Fontana will go the distance. Pavrud likely as well. And Walker further down likely to take the majority of the stint. So we're not going to see really the repercussions of the early pit stops until the very bitter end, and then we'll see how quick, of course, those faster drivers really are as they look to undercut the rest. As now you see the others come back out onto the track, the 777 Audi now going side by side with the East Talent Audi. So now it looks like Karel Bash will come out in front. Obviously, bear in mind they are a lap down, or laps down, on Christopher Haase.
Karel is going to want to try and stay ahead for as long as he can because he's trying to fight for Pro-Am position, and he knows he's as quick as these guys up at the front. Remember, he qualified that car inside the top 3 yesterday. So Karel is a very rapid driver and will be on the same pace as these cars. And so that has really disrupted this battle for second place. And Haase not being able to get the move done into turn 1 could play a critical role in this race.
Yeah, Anton Dokan as well. There's a pit stop being undertaken by the second Oregon Lamborghini. Of course, the 19, unfortunately, will not see the light of day for the second stint here in this race, as we now watch as Goodmanson now moving up into 15th, obviously as a consequence of Dokan moving into that Oregon 63 Lamborghini. Here comes Jeffries, Pro-Am leader, currently 11.4 away from Moscow at the top of the tree. In comes Haase as well, but obviously Karel Bash currently lodged between them, out of position right now. As we see also Mikey Porter 1.4 ahead of Yannick Mettler. In comes now Marcelo Ramirez. So Ralph Aaron, that car's not done yet, Chris.
Yeah, so they managed to get it back out again. Maybe they were waiting for the driver change window to send Ramirez back out there just to give him some extra testing time because that car has not left pit lane since Ralph Aron came in with that puncture. So I've just waited for the driver change window and then get Marcello out there to get some experience. Now, there's been a very specific message for Carol Bash on the timing screen, which is that he has to respect the blue flags. Christopher Haase and Mikey Porter have decided, screw this, we're not going to sit behind this battle for ages. We are coming in early. Now, normally you would see Haase go as far as possible,
or Porter.
But because of the traffic and the battle he's stuck in, we are seeing them do something a little bit different and go earlier. Maybe in clean air, Simon Riker can try and usurp that car. But remember, they've got to take an additional 10 seconds of handicap.
They certainly do. Obviously, it's better than the 20 that they had yesterday, but key to note that obviously they had to make that jump, as we now see side by side between the BDR group of Prom once again and Mari Bondwell behind the wheel against Marcus Pavreau. Very close. I think there must have been some contact there.
There was.
And the ISR already ended up going off circuit, but rejoins now, currently in front of Flash of the Lights. That was not appreciated either by Dominic Bauman, who's in the thick of this as well. The BDR group of Prom of Emmanuel Bondwell now cutting the entirety of that escape, and now in front of what looks to be Marcello Ramirez, also coming through the number 6 of Aaron Walker, who's currently tucked in ahead of Ramirez too. Bauman moving through past the ISR Audi, but what a mishmash through the first sector. I just wanted to usher in as well Fabian Schiller, purple in the first sector on this lap, already back in the car and setting fast laps. No question, Easterland Audi would be conscious of that, hence why they went for the early pit stop.
So, Valentin Pierberg, oh no, sorry, it is Dominic Bauman now, isn't it? Just ahead of the ISR Audi, but a lap down on these guys. So this is that awkward phase of the race where you've got quick runners in amongst drivers who've been battling. That was the contact between Philippe Salacada and Amory Bondwell. And thankfully, the only victim in all of that was the bollard on the apex of turn 2. Into the pits has come the 188 Garage 59 McLaren, Mark Sansom, one of the AM Championship contenders, taking over that car from Alexander West, who we believe will be doing at least one more outing alongside Mark this year.
You can see the correction that Murray Bondwell put in on the replay as well when he was on the curb. It was so close to going wrong. I have to say, he was very fortunate in many ways. Lucas Dunner also lapping quickly as well, also putting in a purple final sector over the last lap, 2:03.312. So this is where we'll start seeing those drivers that went early now starting to try and filter their way back into the order where they should be. Obviously still quite a large number of cars out with their, should we say, faster drivers on the opening stint right now. Mosca being one of them, obviously, generally considered against Carl Bennett. Both are pros, but granted, Mosca has certainly shown that he is a very fast driver, hence why he was on pole position for the start of this race. As we now watch them come through the first sector, there is, of course, Axel Jeffries, second place at the moment, but P1 in Pro-Am class. But Mettler now has got clear air. No cars in front of him right now, 3.3 away from Jeffries himself. So can Mettler really burn a hole through this delta, separating both he and Jeffries?
Just a quick note, Zach Meakin, as you'd expect, has come out ahead of Simon Riker, so the Optimum ahead of the East Talent car, and that's because of the 10 seconds East Talent was taking. So Simon Riker 8.5 seconds behind Meakin. So that is a net third place, which will likely become second when Axel Jeffries hands over the car to his bronze driver in the second part of the race. So this could be a best finish of the season for Optimum Motorsport and their two British GT4 graduate drivers. Meanwhile, Mosca continues to just put more and more distance between himself and the chasing pack. Axel Jeffries now 12.5 seconds behind Tommaso Mosca, and he is giving Carl Bennett a very good chance in this race. 3 minutes left on the driver change window, so this will be the last lap for Tommaso Mosca that he is now starting, and in about 5.8 kilometers time we'll be peeling over to the right hand side to hand over to Carl Bennett.
Absolutely. Heading in towards turn 1 now is the 51 of AF Corsa. Of course, with Amato Ferrari watching on this weekend, and we'll be looking to restore Ferrari to the top billing after last claiming a victory at this circuit was Spirit of Race, obviously with a Ferrari, with Vincent Ambrell and Nicola Marinangeli. As in comes now Dean McDonald. James Kell will be stepping in this time. Obviously, also part of a chasing pack. They were also mixing things up with Pavarud earlier on as well. Salakada will move on through and continue for one more lap, no doubt, to then later come in. Fabio Babini also going out for one more run as well. Bonduel in though, Walker in, so Steve Jans will step up now for the second half of this race as in comes Gino Forgione and taking the place of Michele Rugolo as the pit stops now are in full swing. So now we'll have to wait and see what the repercussions are going to be for the drivers up at the top end now coming in and those that boxed early. How are those that boxed early going to fare now? Now we're coming into the second half of the race. We've only got 25 minutes left or so. That dissipates very quickly, Chris.
That certainly does, particularly when we consider the Pro-Am cars. So we'll keep an eye out on how the likes of Lucas Dunner, Carol Bash and Dominic Baumann are getting on. Because they are now the pros aboard those cars. Everyone else still to hand over to their bronze driver.
And in timely fashion, Tom Leben also ushering in a purple middle sector as well. Personal best in the first, and his last lap, 2:02.881. And he's already managed to get past the likes of Rugolo as well, coming through the timing screen. So we'll wait and see how that updates as they cross the timing lines, but I would certainly suggest that there's every chance that Leben could find himself in the mixer here. Fabian Schiller with the fastest lap as well, and is actually behind Leben at the moment by 9.3 seconds. So keep your eyes peeled on Elite Racing Ferrari. They could have a great chance here in the second half of this stint. In comes now race leader Tommaso Mosca, and Carl Bennett will now jump in the car, and this is going to be an almighty important stint now, or certainly an important pit stop, that's for sure, after the mammoth work that Tommaso Mosca has put in after obtaining pole position and launching out the gap to beyond 12 seconds ahead of this man Axel Jeffries, who swaps out for Khalil Letlarka.
So Dexter Muller also getting aboard the Carbon Mercedes. Hash now taking over the car collection Porsche as well. You see both of those driver changes happening. Dexter Muller wasn't feeling very well yesterday, but managed to persevere, and all things considered, actually put in a pretty decent stint. Hopefully he's feeling a bit better today. Christian Korzanowski handing over to Stanislav Jedlinski, and you see them checking the hood that we saw flapping around earlier, maybe just tightening the bolts on that one. It did not attract the black and orange flag, so it's good to continue. Johannes Zelga taking over the Tsunami Racing Team Porsche. Fabio Babini, who's now, I think, going to go and get ready for his GT Cup race that he's about to start. Double duty for him. Back out into the race, though, comes Carl Bennett. So when he hits the first timing split, we'll be able to give you an indication of what the gap is to Zach Meekin, which will be the important one. Might be one or two of the Pro-Am cars between them, though. If Meekin can clear Letlarka pretty sharpishly into the first corner, yep, he can. So that's clear air then between the top two in this race. Let's see what the gap is when they hit the first timing splits. Simon Riker and Tom Leben with a few Pro-Am cars to have to try and clear, though. There is Fabian Schiller, who has rocketed up the order, isn't he? He's well inside the top 10 now as Stanislav Jedlinski makes his way into the first corner.
Yeah, and obviously in the final two sectors, Fabian Schiller incidentally putting in two purple ones as well, and he was fastest over the last lap, so currently holds the fastest lap of the race. But now Carl Bennett behind the wheel of the Ferrari 296. Riker now moving up into 6 now as they cross the timing line once more, heading into the second sector, and Leben behind him by a second. If you want to compare those two over the last lap, Leben was quicker by approximately 0.8 of a second. So if he can start marshalling that in some more now in the last 22 minutes or so, he could give Easterlent a little bit of a headache here. Obviously, they then have the Pro-Am car of Dexter Muller, who is in Pro-Am P2. Then comes James Kell, who is in the Pro class as well. And of course, Khalil Letlarka leading the Pro-Am fights. Now we're seeing side by side here now with James Kell, or briefly anyway, as he now looks to try and challenge Letlarka for that on-track P3. Of course, it won't matter in terms of the Pro-Am battle, and Letlarka quite happy to oblige and allow James Kell through because he knows it's not his fight, but the car behind him is.
Yeah, it's now line astern for the lead in Pro-Am between Colli Letlarka and Dexter Muller. So the Dragon Racing run into Africa, Ferrari being challenged here by the Carbahn Raceworks Mercedes on the inside of the Virage Bend door, side by side for the lead in Pro-Am with Dexter Muller going for the lead here. They've got more pro cars to come through them as well, which could disrupt the battle later on. Muller goes through into the lead of the race and takes the top spot in Pro-Am away from Colli Letlarka, and so now it could be Carbahn Raceworks with the first victory of the season in that category. Still a long way to go, of course. So this is Steve Jans on the inside of Stanislav Jedlinski, and Maxi Gertz taking one of them, taking both of them in just a couple of corners there. Lead gap starting to come down ever so slightly. 8.9 seconds between Carl Bennett and Zach Meakin. James Kell a further 3.7 seconds back. Could be back-to-back podium weekends for Optimum and Greystone here. So then it's Dexter Muller in the lead of Pro-Am, Colli Letlarka, Simon Reichert in 6th position, 3 seconds behind that top 2 in Pro-Am. Then Tom Leben, Hash 3rd in Pro-Am, then Fabi Schiller and Antoine Dogan for Team Oregon. In the AM category, Stanislav Jedlinski still holds on to that lead, but we'll have Gino Forgione for close company pretty soon, I'd have thought. And then Alfredo Hernandez currently 3rd, but only just ahead of Mark Sansom.
And just look at this now. We've got the move here from Tom Leben. He's been catching up with Riker all the way since his stint has started. Remember, it was beyond a second. It's now only 3/10, or it was, heading down the Mistral straight, or at least through the first half of it anyway. And he's going to try and get a better run on the way down through towards turn 10. Riker knows it, goes defensive to the inside, and now it's wheel to wheel, heading through towards Scene Corner. But in front, a little complication because, of course, Letlarka is just positioned in front, but around the outside, the in-swinger coming in from Tom Leben. And now he will move up now, and in the process needs to try and dodge and weave past a sister Ferrari, but from a different team. Letlarka again obliging, allowing the pro entry through, so it will be Leben up into 5th place overall, and following suit, I have no doubt, Simon Riker will move into that 6th place.
Right on cue. Pair on the inside. So this is a net 4th, really, that these two are fighting for once they clear Dexter Muller in the Pro-Am lead. And my mental maths is not good enough to see if that's going to give the lead back to East Talent, as we see the move again from Tom Lebon. Of course, the important car to watch is going to be Maxi Gertz, who's currently 12th and only about 4 seconds away from a points-paying position. One of those cars in front of him as well is Libor Milota, the AM driver in the ISR Audi. So I would expect Gertz to make forward progress. There's a potential top 6 on offer there for the pre-event championship leaders. I think that would keep them in the lead of the championship going into Red Bull Ring.
Yeah, Zach Meakin once again faster than Carl Bennett, but the gaps aren't too hefty between the two over the last lap, as we now watch as the car belonging to Michael Blanchimont, Santaloc, currently sat down in 13th, chasing Libor Milota. Of course, that's over a Pro-Am fight as well. I think for Pro-Am 4th, actually, right now, as we're looking at it on screen. That's
actually a change for 5th. Steve Jans just got through on Michael Blanchimont there.
Yeah, Blanchimont obviously chasing after the ISR Audi that's a little bit further up. So once again, we're going to be seeing 2 Audis duke it out. Steve Jans now moves up into 13th ahead of Blanchimont. That's on our timing screen now. So they now make their way down the straight. So a little complication there for Milota. So he's now got to try and work this one out. 6/10 separating the pair of Jans and Milota at the moment. Mark Sampson moving up into 22nd, currently just behind Dominic Baumann, but of course Baumann part of the Pro-Am battle as now they come down in towards the Mistral chicane once again. We're running on board with the 28 at the moment of Lewis Michael Dorbecker, who's on the tail now of the Santaloc, belonging to Michael Blanchimont. Steve Jans further up the road and trying to creep and peep away in his pursuit after Milota. Here this time there is the ISR Audi with the Mercedes now in full swing, coming through the right-hander at turn 10. The 26 of Michael Blanchimont now well positioned in front of Dorbecker, and I'm sure that fight will very shortly brew up as well, with further back yet another Mercedes waiting in the wings. That, of course, being driven by Lucas Dunner, also part of the Pro-Am battle, but they're a distant way off the likes of Dexter Muller at the moment, who leads the Pro-Am fight 4th overall as well. And this could be a momentous result for Dexter Muller, who, like we've already said, has been very poorly this weekend. This would be the most remarkable get-well-soon gift you could ever receive.
Trying to double check when the last time they actually won in Pro-Am was.
Yeah, up the inside as well. Big move from Steve Jans, has got past Libor Milotta. So that now is Pro-Am 4th, going the way of Steve Jans. Great move, coming through Pont Corner, now stretching down through towards turn 1. Milotta still remaining in the wheel tracks, but staying outside of the Mercedes Aero. So once again, the two Audis will be united. That is, of course, the Santalok Audi of Michael Blanchimont chasing after the ISR, the Czech lineup of Libor Milotta, of course, initially driven by Philippe Salakada. Schiller has got past Let Larker as well, so he's moved up to 7th overall, chasing after Simon Riker. This time the gap is only 4.8 between those two at the moment. It's very late on the brakes. Oh my goodness me, and he's round! Oh my goodness, Lewis Michael Dorbecker around coming through the first sector just before turn 6, and now he's going to have to self-right himself now. Cuts a little bit of the corner there as he rejoins the mainstay part of the circuit, and that's going to cost him a lot of time off the back of Johannes Zelger, and also could yet have allowed Karel Bash through, as well as now down the inside. A look here now, this time from Tom Leben on Dexter Muller. Of course, this is not Muller's fight. If Muller wants to play his cards right here, he might just want to let Leben through and just focus on the Pro-Am battle. 5-second time penalty has gone the way of the 7. That's Alfredo Hernandez receiving a penalty, but it's wheel-to-wheel now as Leben now moves through into 4th overall. That will not affect Dexter Muller's race, though, still in the Pro-Am lead.
Same penalty for the 777 as well of Karel Bash. Last Pro-Am win for Yannick Mettler and Dexter Muller, the very beginning of the 2023 season back in Portimao. So it's been a long time coming, this one, but of course still a long way to go as we see the spin again for Lewis Michael Dorbecker, who has recently been given permission to run in the Pro-Am category, because he ran into the back of Libor Milotta, didn't he there, it looked like. And so this is Muller now being rounded up by the pro cars. So Lebon has found his way through into 4th position. And Muller just needs to not get crossed up or lose too much time here with Riker finding his way through. It's not his fight, although of course the points do make a difference for the pro cars. There isn't a separate pro championship. The pro cars fight for overall honours. So if the checkered flag were to fall now, Riker wouldn't get points for 5th in a pro championship. He'd get the points for 6th in an overall championship. Doesn't work the same as the Pro-Am and the Am cars.
Obviously, if Muller does finish in 5th, in the overall standpoint of things, he does lay claim to those points, but their attention is more solely focused on the Pro-Am fight. And obviously taking a victory here in that class would be so sweet as far as this championship season is concerned. First of the season, as you mentioned as well, Chris, last time being back at Portimao last year, or back in, it was last year, wasn't it? 2024, no, 2023? For Dexter Muller and
23.
23. So yeah, near enough 2 seasons ago now. Yeah. As now Simon Riker moves through past Dexter Muller. That's for on-track 5th. But like we said, Dexter Muller Pro-Am first at the moment.
And there is a flurry of Pro-Am cars as well further down the order. You've got Jans, Hash, Dunner in there, pro driver in the midst of all that. Milotta, Blanchimont, Zelga, Dorbecker, Bash, all line astern in the timing order and separated by only about 10 seconds as well as it stands.
Bit of a wide moment there for Dexter Muller as well, coming through the final sector. So no harm, no foul just yet. Obviously, Let Larker quite a ways behind. And if anything, Muller is gapping him. We've got a bit of a mishmash here with Hash, also part of the Pro-Am battle. He's looking to try and scoop himself a Pro-Am podium. Currently sat 4th in that classification, just a little bit behind Steve Jans. But as we know, Steve Jans a very tricky driver to catch. We just see him in the distance. Riker getting confirmation on the timing screen that he's moving up to 5th ahead of Muller. We saw that earlier on, and obviously Schiller just further back then by half a second, just in behind Dexter, as well as now down the inside comes the ISR Audi, this time of what looks to be Libor Milotta. He's trying to move his way past, and it's now the two Audis going to go wheel to wheel. Now, this looks very similar to what we saw yesterday. Only East Talent were involved in this, and the Santalok car was also involved on the run down through towards turn 1. Milotta on the outside as they come in towards turn 1. Now, Blanchimont looking to take the inside line. They're going to meet in the middle as they creep through turn 1 now, with 12 minutes or so to go, and the 26 of Michael Blanchimont upending the ISR Audi. They swap places with Hash still in 13th place overall.
A great battling between the Am runners in the Pro-Am category. This is all over 5th, 6th and 7th in Pro-Am. Fabian Schiller has found his way through on Dexter Muller for 6th place overall. Maxi Gertz, meanwhile, into the points. 2 cars ahead of him that seem like, well, maybe 3. So it could be top 7 for Gertz, because he's got 2 AM cars, and then Antoine Docan also just 2 seconds in front of him, as once again Michael Blanchimont looks to try and make a move on Hash. Milota trying to take that 6th place spot back in the Pro-Am category. Only 11 minutes left for these guys to duke it out. The lead gap, meanwhile, has been incredibly stable, remains at 8.9 seconds. Carl Bennett seems to have this one in the bag. There is Maxi Gertz now in 10th position, about to round up the 2nd place car in Pro-Am, Colli Letlarka. And on the inside of the virage, Ben Dorr slices through like a hot knife through butter and into 9th position overall. And remember, this is Gertz trying to protect the championship lead for Levente Revest due to Gertz's incredibly busy schedule, where he seems to be in a race on a different continent every weekend at the moment. He has not been contesting the full championship here in GT Open, so we've had sub-drivers like Philip Ellis and Matteo Cairoli all carrying the flag for Levente Revest's title charge.
Obviously, Gertz also in a title battle in the British GT Championship with 2C's Motorsport, also in Mercedes. Now we have a look at a replay here of the 63 that was, of course, driven by Anton Docan, and just trying to make his way through the order past the Pro-Am runner of Into Africa by Dragon Racing. Of course, being driven by Khalil Letlarka for the 2nd stint after Axel Jeffries took the initial. It's now Hash in the 31 Porsche for Car Collection. Currently sits 13th, 5th in class, and still being pursued by 2 Audis that have not left him any respite whatsoever. Here comes Michael Blanchimont with a look down the inside, unable to make a move here just yet, and that could open a door here for Libor Malotta as well to return the serve after losing the place earlier on in the race. Hash going very tight to the inside, trying to defend the line, but that will affect his momentum on the way out of turn 6 and turn 7, running down the Mistral straight. Still the Audis now cemented together, but they've got a Porsche in front that they'd like to dispatch. And whilst, of course, they share the same manufacturer, I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of teamwork here, as now the lights flashed on the front of Michael Blanchimont's Audi R8 LMS, creeping behind as well as Libor Malotta as defensive goes this time. The 26 belonging to Michael Blanchimont, wheel to wheel, side by side. Hash did well to evade that one as they come through to the midway point on the Mistral straight and exit out of the 2nd part. Hash, got to give him credit, defending really well here.
Yeah, he's doing a great job out there to keep these guys at bay. These are very experienced drivers. Remember, Hash only in his 2nd season of racing at all, whereas likes of Michael Blanchimont has been racing, well, if you go back to his mid-jet days, about 12 years ago, as it gets very tight into Le Bousset. Libor Malotta there at the back of this queue, also very experienced in the Central and Eastern European Championships.
Important to note that Michael Blanchimont has been given a last warning for track limits now, as he looks to still continue to fight with Hash, so he's got to be very wary if he continues to peruse and take advantage of the off-track sections. He did a little bit coming through Scene Corner, coming into Sector 3. It's side-by-side again between the 2 Audis, and Carol Bash has also joined a trio of Audis now as Bash makes his way past the ISR.
Well, we've got 4 of them in this race, and 3 of them are all occupying the same bit of racetrack at the moment. And so Carol Bash, remember the pro in that Pro-Am car, starting to slice his way through the pack. Now Fabian Schiller is on the back of Simon Riker here for 5th place. A factory driver from Mercedes looking to gain an extra point in this race, heading down the Mistral. And no, it was the shark-teethed front-nosed car that was being chased yesterday. We said it was the chasing car that should have had the Jaws music. I think we can cue that now for Fabi Schiller as Carol Bash makes his way through on Hash, bangs wheels there with Michael Blanchimont's Audi coming out of turn 5, but no harm done there. Could be an opportunity for Malotta to try and find his way through. Lewis Michael Dorbecker at the back of that queue as well, trying to go through. Oh, knocking off one of the floppy markers there that denotes the track limits on the exit of Scene Corner. This is great. We've got 2 battles we're trying to keep an eye on at the same time here. One for 5th position, one for the points paying positions in the Pro-Am category. Lewis Michael Dorbecker does make a move on Libor Malotta and takes 8th place away in the Pro-Am category.
Yeah, blue flags was just briefly waved there. Obviously not in relation to this particular exchange that we're seeing out on track. As now Schiller up the inside here. Now this time on Simon Riker, and that is for P5. Jaws is struck, but it's wheel to wheel, heading down through towards turn 1, and Riker's not going down without a fight. They need to try and at least get some points to defend their spot, at least in the championship fight here overall. They're very wary of the fact that Maxi Gertz is on the move, and Schiller up the inside once more will defend the move, defend the place. He now heads into P5, and now the Gatsby car is certainly on a rise. Schiller sending a chiller up the spine of Simon Riker.
Cracking lunge on the inside, and that is how that car lost the lead yesterday, actually, with Levente Reves and Anthony Bartone. But Schiller making a great move for 5th place there. He's 5.1 behind Tom Lebon. And we'll see what kind of pace he's got in purely clean air, but only 6 minutes left on the clock. This is Max Gertz on the back of Antoine Dokan for 8th position. So Dokan will lead them over the line. 5.2 litre V10 versus 6.2 litre V8. Both with big changes coming in the future of these two brands. Lamborghini releasing the Temerario next year, had its unveiling at the Goodwood Festival of Speed last week. Of course, going to a twin-turbo V8. Mercedes going in a similar route with their new car, due in 2028 currently. But that seems to be quite a flexible date. Also going with a smaller twin-turbo V8 for the future as well. And got a Porsche leading this battle. They're supposed to be bringing out a new GT3 and Cup car next year as well. So Hash leads that battle over the line. Michael Blanchemont going for a manoeuvre. It's actually Lewis Michael Dorbecker, the aggressor, who goes around the outside, takes 7th position in Pro-Am away from Michael Blanchemont. Great manoeuvre there from Dorbecker in the BDR Grupo Prom Mercedes.
Yeah, obviously now coming down through towards turn 10. At the moment, Hash still continuing this brilliant defensive effort now. Obviously, Blanchemont right on the back of Lewis Michael Dorbecker. So they now spread it down through again. Blanchemont going a little bit wide. I can tell you that the team managers for the car 26 has been asked to report to race control. Again, that is Michael Blanchemont. Obviously, we alluded to the track limits violations earlier on. Of course, he had his last warning not too long ago. So whether they're looking to discuss matters that concern that, I'm sure that is going to be very much paramount at the topic of discussion. So Johannes Zelger is also coming to join this fight. So now this battle from P14 extends downwards to P18 as we now watch them unfold out on track now. Hash looking to try and defend. In comes Dorbecker. Also taking a wider line, coming in towards Pond Corner, and he'll be hoping that the Mercedes Grunt will be able to land a blow here against the Porsche that has ultimately been like an iron wall here for Hash, who is determined to try and lay claim to any points he could muster in the Pro-Am class. Around the outside now comes Dorbecker. Wants to look around the outside again. No Hash with the idyllic line. Will defend the place. Now this opens the door once more, obviously, to the Sandslock of Michael Blanchemont just in behind. I can tell you a 5-second time penalty has been added to Michael Blanchemont's race time, so that will take him out of this fight, essentially, should it stay like this in terms of the Pro-Am battle.
Yeah, at the moment that would cost him positions to Libor Milota and Johannes Zelger. Never mind.
Oh my
Damage
goodness.
for the ISR Audi. And that's going to have to limp home or park at the side of the racetrack. And so Libor Milota, they're out of contention now. And Zelga, he got a swapper on the middle of the hotel chicane. And not sure if that was just trying to gather the car up or a desperate lunge. But either way, contact and a hopping Audi. But that has given Michael Blanchemont a little bit of reprieve, actually, in terms of that time penalty, because he's got quite a bit of a gap to the cars behind him now. Johannes Zelger's continued on. So 1.2 seconds back, and then Dominic Baumann a further 3.7. So he'd lose those 2 places.
Just want to talk a little bit about Carl Bennett lately. Of course, we were wondering about the time whether Zach Meakin would be able to make any inroads on Bennett. Got to give Bennett credit here. He's lapping faster than Meakin has, and is continuing to do so over the last few laps. Over the last time out, was actually over 4.5 tenths quicker than Zach Meakin over the last lap. And if you could, I mean, we're into the final 2 minutes now. It looks evident that we could be seeing a Ferrari back on the top step of the podium here at Paul Ricard.
Some Bennett credit is always good, and Carl Bennett, the Thai American, born in the United States but raised in Bangkok, trying his hand at GT racing after racing in the World Endurance Championship for Isotta Fraschini last year. Was a single-seater driver before that, now starting to find a home, represented by Fernando Alonso's A14 management company, as well as Carl Bennett. And just a very different story to Tommaso Mosca, who's much more akin to GT racing, having raced in Carrera Cup Italy, in GT World Challenge, and then most recently in Italian GT as well. But this is about to be a breakthrough victory for the pairing of Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett. There'll be one more lap to go when Bennett crosses the stripe. He's well clear, 9.6 seconds ahead of young Zach Meakin. And we keep talking about the young drivers coming through the order. Carl Bennett is another one as well, 20 years old. Tommaso Mosca, you can throw him into that as well, at only 25. And so one more lap to go then for Carl Bennett, as meanwhile Johannes Zelga has picked up a 10-second time penalty for causing that collision with the ISR Audi of Libor Milotta.
Last time we had an AF Course victory here at Paul Ricard was all the way back in 2020 with Vincent Abril and Louis Pret. Of course, we did see Vincent Abril back on the top step of the podium at the end of the oh my goodness! Oh, well, that's Hash in the back of Dominic Baumann, who careers into the barrier, and that is some extensive damage. The rear spoiler separated from the car. Hash has also come to a grinding halt here on the Mistral chicane.
Well, that's big drama for a massive contender in the Pro-Am Championship. Yeah. The winners yesterday, and so it was a poor decision, a poor result, sorry, for the Get Speed crew yesterday, and now it's going to be no points for SPS in that battle. And so hopefully Dominic Baumann okay after what looked like a very big hit into the barriers after a hit from Hash. And of course that has shaken things up in the order, hasn't affected who's going to be on the podium. We're going to see that moment again.
God, the BDR Grupo Prom was so fortunate there. Just came across the front of it. But for Dominic Baumann, that is one immense impact.
Yeah, very high speed there, of course, as well. And so the Tech Pro barriers doing a great job at absorbing that one. Optimum Motorsport waiting to receive their car in second place as well. It's going to match their best result of the season as well. But for Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca, it is going to be a breakthrough victory. Now we see the Dragon was the message over the radio to Carl Bennett when he claimed his first podium 2 weeks ago in Budapest, and now they are going to go even better on this one as Carl Bennett makes his way through the final corner, and for the first time it is Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca who take victory in the International GT Open Race 2 win in Paul Ricard for the AF Corsa squad. An absolutely fantastic performance. Zach Meakin will cross the line in second place for another spectacular podium for the Optimum Motorsport crew, and it will be two McLarens on the podium with James Kell and Dean McDonald for Greystone as well. Another podium for them in successive race weekends. The circuit is under full course yellow conditions post checkered flag because of that incident down at the Mistral, but that is par for the course now anyway, because one of the main overtaking opportunities has gone away, and we should be ready to receive Dexter Muller any second now for his first victory in more than a year in the Pro-Am category. Might take a little bit longer because they're running at full course yellow. Speeds, no, something's happened to Dexter Muller on this final lap, because Lucas Dunner has taken it at the checkered flag and only 59 thousandths of a second ahead of Steve Yance. So it's Motorpark who take the Pro-Am honours. Muller comes across the line in third.
Goodness me, Dunner taking it at the very last minute. Steve Yance, what looked to be a very unlikely podium visit, does step on the podium into P9. Dexter Muller will, of course, come across the line, will feature P3, but I'm sure he would have preferred a bigger result than that. They were on for a very dominant Pro-Am win, and it's all come unstuck. Obviously, some words being had between Dominic Baumann and Hash over the incident that they shared coming down through the long Mistral straights, but glad to see that they're both out of the car and at least okay from what we have seen. So that's obviously the most important factor. But like I was saying before, what a victory for Carl Bennett, Tommaso Mosca, their first of the season, and for good reason he flashes to the lights. Right in front of the AF Corsa team boss, Amato Ferrari, enjoying a first victory since 2020, as I said. Vincent Abril and Louis Pret managing to mastermind their way to the top step of the podium, and it's only the second time that they, of course, have, of course, won here at Paul Ricard.
Well, they won here as well last year with Abril and Maranangeli, of course.
Well, with Spirits of Race.
Yeah, but that's AF Corsa run
essentially.
car. It's just a different arm of the thing. That's
yeah, to win back in 2017 as well.
Same, absolutely out of the same stable.
Yeah.
So, fantastic result here. A first victory for Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca, going off of their first pole position and off of the back of their first podium 2 weeks ago in Budapest as well. This was the moment that Carl Bennett crossed the line, a race winner in GT3 competition. Had a dabble at it in the Asian Le Mans series with Absolute Racing alongside his father, Gregory. But this still very much his first year of GT competition, having made the switch over from prototypes, from single-seaters out there as well. So we have across the line as well now Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo.
This is the moment with Dexter Muller.
Oh, no. That is so unfortunate. So a spin for the team tour car that collects Dexter Muller, and presumably we saw the damage on there. Presumably that causes him to slow down and costs Carbahn Raceworks a first victory in the Pro-Am Championship in over a year. And Motorpark must be thanking their lucky stars, because not only was it them gaining on him as well, but to pip Steve Yance by 59 thousandths of a second, because Dunner was charging through the pack.
Absolutely.
So that, of course, puts Timo Rumpfkeil in his own car
on the podium,
on the top step of the podium as well. It's great news for GetSpeed that Steve Yance and Aaron Walker, I'm sure they'll be bitterly disappointed to miss out on the win by such a narrow margin. But of course, they score very good points for their championship, and they won't want it to be this way. But with Dominic Baumann and Valentin Pierberg not scoring points because of that incident, that will make things a bit more equal in the championship. Just very quickly on AM, so it's back-to-back victories for the AF Corsa number 21 crew. Victory in both AM and overall for them. Mark Sampson bringing the Garage 59 car home second with Alexander West, and then third was Alfredo Hernandez for, I believe, only the second time.
Yeah. Big celebrations for AF Corsa, and for good reason. Back on the top step once again. And just wanted to allude to the fact, obviously, Lucas Dunner and Steve Yans representing the two teams that came together yesterday that ended up sending Lucas Dunner and Timo Rumpfkeil out of the race in race one.
Good point.
But now it looks like redemption has been met for Lucas Dunner and Timo Rumpfkeil. Celebrations here for AF Corsa with a photograph for Tommaso Mosca and Carl Bennett. What a fantastic victory for them as well. And happiness at Optimum Motorsport, who have had great form in the past at this very circuit. They were three-time winners in succession, with the combination of Nick Moss and Joe Osborne winning twice, and then of course Samuel Dahan and Charlie Fagg following that straight away in 2023 with a victory in race one. But it's a Ferrari day today here for race two here at Le Castellet, and again sharing in the celebrations and the spoils with every member of the AF Corsa team, and quite rightly so, kicking off their season proper. Of course, the second half of the season has generally offered them, I think, better results. But run us through the classification, Chris.
It's a first victory in the International GT Open for Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca at AF Corsa. Zach Meakin and Mikey Porter once again on the podium for Optimum Motorsport, as are Dean McDonald and James Kell for Greystone, both of them on the podium for the second race weekend in a row. The Toms at Elite Motorsport missing out in fourth ahead of Anthony Bartone and Fabian Schiller. East Talent coming home sixth ahead of Oregon's number 63, and then 59 thousandths of a second separating the Pro-Am victory. Lucas Dunner pipping Steve Yance at the post first, with Maxi Gertz bringing the Motorpark Mercedes home in 10th position. I think he must have got caught up in that as in some late drama as well to fall down slightly further. Daxter Muller, third in the end in Pro-Am with Yannick Mettler and Olymp Racing's 777. Dragon Racing's car in 13th position, then Santalog, and then the victory once again goes to AF Courses number 21 of Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo. Back-to-back victories for them ahead of Amari Bonduel and Lewis Michael Dorbecker, Mark Sampson and Alexander West, along with Alfredo Hernandez completing the AM podium ahead of Stanislav Jedlinski, Christian Korsanowski and Torvador Gisarasen for Team Tour. We lost Hash, Dominic Baumann, Johannes Zelger, Libor Milota and Marcelo Ramirez in that race. Top three in race 2. It is another podium finish for Dean McDonald and James Kell from Greystone GT. The McLaren back on the podium. Once again, it is a podium finish for Optimum Motorsports, Zach Meekin and Mikey Porter. The young gun GT4 graduates continuing to build in strength and performance. But for the first time, it is Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca who are victors in the International GT Open. Let's hear from them.
First win for AF Corse this year and maiden win in the GT Open for Tommaso Mosca, Carl Bennett. Well done, guys. Tommaso, this morning we were talking and you were optimistic, so it went well.
Yeah, we were sure that we had a good package. The car was very good. Of course, I did a great job in the pit stop and to set up the car. Even Carl did a very, very good job taking the car in the lead and gaining on second place. So we are very happy and we hope that we will go on like this.
Well done. And Carl, you had not the easy job at the end, but most was done and you increased the gap.
Yeah, I just did my thing after Tommaso did the amazing gap, and I just had a safe, good pace, made sure to follow the team instructions, bring the car home, and yeah, I just did my thing. Thank you very much to AF Corsa and my awesome teammate.
And now time to enjoy.
Thank you.
Let's look back then at the last 60 minutes of racing. Tommaso Mosca and Ralph Aron side by side into the first corner, vying for the lead. Plenty of cars having to take to the escape road, both on the inside and the outside of the circuit. That meant there was a little bit of reshuffling later needed around the lap to restore the rightful order. Puncture for Ralph Aron from second place. A bizarre moment at Scene Corner, but well held by the Estonian. That could have been an awful lot worse. Great drama in Pro-Am once again with Alex Fontana with a deft touch on his left foot to make two amazing lunges into the first corner. The driver change window opened. We saw the drivers swapping over to their teammates. A crucial move here for Zach Meekin in trying to keep in touch with Carl Bennett to round out the Pro-Am leader. Colli Larke held that for a while as he was rounded up by the drivers behind, eventually losing that lead to Dexter Muller. The Pro cars finding their way through. Tom Lebon and Simon Riker would eventually do so as well through Le Bousset. Fabian Schiller found his way through on Simon Riker for 5th position in the car that finished second yesterday. But last lap drama for Hash and Dominic Baumann, yesterday's Pro-Am winners, hard into the barriers after contact on the Mistral, but that was of no consequence to Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca, who took an absolutely sensational first win in the championship. This is what it's done to the championship standings then. It is still Levente Reves who leads, but only by 7 points now over Simon Riker and Christopher Haase. The Toms have closed in yet further, as have Zach Meekin and Mikey Porter there, 20 and 23 points back respectively. And I will say, after that victory, I don't think we can quite count out Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca just yet. It might look like a significant gap, but don't forget, it's a double points finale at the Monza 500. We know that anything can happen. Last year, we went there with 8 entries still in contention for the championship.
Not forgetting as well, drop scores, which are obviously going to make
Yes.
quite a difference when that rolls around. But Levente Revesh now back on top. 1 point away from the mighty Century as well, as they all gather just behind the scenes. Obviously, Steve Yans in a very busy weekend for himself, obviously conversing with our winners in Pro-Am, Timo Römfkarl and Lucas Dunner, doing it in truly unbelievable style, obviously, given the nature of what happened. Obviously, we do hope that Yannick Meckler and Dexter Muller are okay. We can just see them in the distance there, and obviously you can just see they're probably not the happiest at the moment with what's unfolded. Currently conversing with Championship CEO Jesus Pereira as it stands. Optima Motorsport on the left-hand side, celebrating a brilliant P2 for Zach Meakin and Mikey Porter. They, of course, taking some much-needed points at a circuit that Optima had performed so well in the past. Great to see them back on top. Of course, they're celebrating as well, not just with the two drivers, but also with the team bosses behind the scenes as well. Also, we can just see further back the Greystone Collective. 2 McLarens in the top 3, just to say, overall. So not a bad end to a weekend for the McLaren manufacturer at this point, with James Kell finishing 3rd.
Absolutely. Back-to-back weekends, they've been on the podium, both Optimum and Greystone. Same for AF Corsa, of course, as well. There is James Kell and Dean McDonald. I'm sure they'll be happy with 3rd in that one after some struggles throughout the season. Zach Meakin and Mikey Porter continuing to grow in performance and ability there. Those two 18-year-olds in their first year of GT3 racing, having come out of GT4 competition. But now we will have Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca on the top step of the podium. Absolutely remarkable performance from them. Imperious at the front of the field, and a great drive from Carl Bennett, yet matching the pace of young Meakin. And you consider they're both in their first year of GT3 racing. And we'll now hear the Italian national anthem. Everyone loves hearing the Italian national anthem, don't they? Everyone's always happy when a Ferrari wins. It's just something, it's a law of nature, I'm afraid, as the trophies are presented to James Kell and Dean McDonald. They are on the podium for the 3rd time this season. A win and 2 third-place finishes for Zach Meakin and Mikey Porter. They're starting to rack these up. It's the 3rd podium of the season as well for them, following on from Budapest and the opening meeting of the season in Portimao. For Carl Bennett and Tommaso Mosca, only their 2nd visit to the podium, of course, but to the top step.
Jean-Philippe Desfar from Michelin presenting the trophies to the winning drivers. And, of course, the representative from AF Corsa Ferrari now standing for a photograph as well.
Ugo Massaratini, they're one of the team managers at AF Corsa, running the show here at GT Open and also in Italian at GT. And a very good day for the AF Corsa squad. Of course, victory overall and also in the AM category. We will see that podium shortly. But that is a great day for all 3 of those squads. And we were talking about it being a 2-horse race at the top of the show, but, you know, it's going to come down to Monza. We're pretty sure of that. And one good result at Monza could vault one of those teams up to the top of the standings. That is still very much all to play for.
Yeah. I mean, across all championships, there are going to be close battles. Still early days with a few rounds to go. Of course, we will be going to Red Bull Ring next, which unfortunately will not be appearing on the calendar for next season. So it's going to be very much a celebration, really, I'm sure, at Red Bull Ring. Home weekend, of course, for East Talent Racing Audi as well in their pursuit for the titles. They'll be hoping for a big weekend at their home race. Barcelona coming up later on, as well as Monza for the grand finale. As now we see Yannick Mettler standing on the top step. He knows where they really should be standing.
That is, I don't normally agree with that kind of thing, but on this occasion, I think I'll let that one slide, because Dexter did absolutely nothing wrong in that one, and that is just cruel luck, which unfortunately is so often the way in racing. A lot of racing drivers come in with the aspirations of celebrating on the top step of the podium week in and week out, and we forget that racing is 90% failing, and every now and again when things do go well, it makes it a little bit worth it. But for now, Yannick and Dexter will have to settle for a 5th podium of the season.
Speaks to the character, really, of Dexter Muller and, of course, Yannick Mettler. The fact that they were able to take it like champs. Of course, we saw Dexter consoling his teammate, Yannick Mettler. Of course, it was Dexter behind the wheel of the car when it actually happened. If anyone's probably going to be upset, it's likely to be him, as Jean-Philippe Desfar once again presents the trophies to the drivers, this time the P2 runners, as the final trophy gets presented to our race winners here in Pro-Am. Of course, Timo Rumpf, Kyle and Lucas Dunner, lifting them aloft, as I'm sure Heiko Neumann will be enjoying the scenes there. Of course, unfortunately, he won't get any points for this, but he'll be glad to see that at least his car had managed to find itself on the top step in Pro-Am class.
Only Lucas Dunner's 2nd appearance on the podium so far this year. His first on the top step of the rostrum. Of course, he and Heiko were successful in the road to Le Mans in the build-up to the 24 hours. But a first victory here in the International GT Open. I think that's Lucas's first win in any class, isn't it? Because in his couple of appearances he made in Pro last year, didn't quite manage to reach the top step of the rostrum. Steve Janssen, Aaron Walker, of course, we mentioned, good for their Pro-Am Championship. That's their 5th appearance on the podium so far this year. Narrowly missing out on the win by 59 thousandths of a second. I can't wait to go down to Motor Park and ask to see that footage of how that played out. 3 completely different cars on the podium compared to yesterday, incidentally, in Pro-Am. It was SBS, Santaloc and BDR Grupo Prom yesterday on the podium. Today is Motor Park, Get Speed and Carbon Raceworks coming out of the SBS stable as well. But now we will have the AM podium, and it is Alfredo Hernandez just getting a helping hand onto the top step of the podium. His 2nd appearance there this season. Mark Sansom and Alexander West being able to score some good points, but once again extending their championship lead, Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo with a 5th consecutive victory in the AM category. Absolutely remarkable stuff. Since race 2 in Hockenheim, they have only stood on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from, again, an AF Corsa team that will take 2 top step performances with Carl Bennett and, of course, taking the checkered flag alongside his teammate Tommaso Mosca, but also the turn of Gino Forgione and Michele Rugolo. We'll talk about his legacy in the championship. It continues once again in bright fashion. Lifted the trophies aloft, and still Garage 59 pursuing the title. Mark Sansom, of course, very much in the vein of form that he's in. Could be on the cusp of lifting the crown as well, but still a big fight ahead.
Well, that's all from Paul Ricard. We now go on the summer break, and we'll be back on the 6th of September at the Red Bull Ring. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Une autre course, et au terme de celle-ci, évidemment.